Criminal charges for Alec Baldwin? We all know the story. Alec Baldwin is shooting a western in New Mexico. He's handed a gun that he was told was cold, and then, while rehearsing a scene, Alec Baldwin shot 2 people on the set. One of those 2 people died. The question I have, in Indiana, would this be a crime? Now, it's definitely not murder, which requires knowing or intentional conduct. Witnesses said the gun was cold when they handed it to Alec Baldwin. Cold is industry slang for unloaded or safe. Now, it's not voluntary manslaughter, as that requires sudden heat or some sort of provocation. By all accounts, the people that were shot were on excellent terms with Alec Baldwin, and there was no animosity or strife or even fighting at the time they were shot. Now, it's possibly involuntary manslaughter, but Indiana's version doesn't really fit. They would have to show that Alec Baldwin was committing or attempting to commit a misdemeanor level 6 or level 5 felony. It would be a real stretch for the state to charge involuntary manslaughter. But hey, Indiana stretches all the time to try to find ways to charge people with crime, so I wouldn't be surprised if they tried. Now, the most likely charge for Alec Baldwin would be reckless homicide, a level 5 felony with up to 6 years in jail. Why? Well, all the state would have to show is that Alec Baldwin acted recklessly while rehearsing the scene and when the gun went off. Recklessly is defined by Indiana statute as when a person engages in conduct in plain, conscious, and unjustifiable disregard of harm that might result, and the disregard involves a substantial deviation from acceptable standards of conduct. But even though they can charge Alec Baldwin with reckless homicide, there are some huge problems with that. Alec Baldwin was told the gun was cold, which in Hollywood means safe. I think that completely kills any kind of criminal charges against Alec Baldwin himself. Alec Baldwin is an actor in a movie. The people in charge of the guns told him the gun was safe to use during the rehearsal. He relied on that, as I'm sure actors do every single day. This is not plain, conscious, or unjustifiable disregard of the safety of others. And so, while I don't think Alec Baldwin would be found guilty of reckless homicide, that's not the end of the story. I think Alec Baldwin could be held liable in civil court for shooting these 2 people, and here's why. Alec Baldwin's an experienced actor. He's one of the producers on this very movie. And while he's allowed to rely on the statements of assistant directors or the people who are in charge of the firearms, there's a legitimate argument to be made that he should have double-checked to be sure that it was unloaded. He could have asked that the person who handed him the gun and told him it was safe to prove it. Show me it's safe. Open up the barrel. Let me make sure there's no live rounds in there. So many things he could have done. I do think Alec Baldwin was negligent. Now, what's negligence? Negligence is simple. Negligence is when a person doesn't use ordinary care, and because they didn't use ordinary care, another person was injured. I don't think Alec Baldwin used ordinary care when handling a real firearm on a set full of real people working on a movie. Now, some people are going to say, but Marc, he was told it was a cold gun by an assistant director, and that's the industry standard. And that's important. The industry standards can be a factor in deciding what is ordinary care, but a jury is not bound by it. A jury can say, no, that's not enough. When you're dealing with something that could result in a death, you got to go above and beyond just being told it's safe. So just because Alec Baldwin was told the gun was safe doesn't necessarily mean he's not negligent in handling it. He could have double-checked. He should have double-checked because it was a real gun on a set with real people. And the danger of a real gun with a real bullet is very real, as everyone is finding out, and we all knew. Details are still unfolding. It is important to remember that there is not always a crime just because something bad happens. And just because there's not a crime, it does not mean there's not a civil case. Think about O.J. Simpson. He was found not guilty of the crime, but he was found liable in the civil case. If you have any questions, give us a call. We love to talk about the law. In the meantime, stay safe and look out for one another.